Alright, so beautiful Saturday morning, finishing up the GlowShift install, and what happened was I got everything installed, I got everything working, I started driving it around, and I noticed that I had a vacuum leak, and I'm running extremely rich. So I did a lot of research, come to find out if you have a vacuum leak, it will probably make it run rich. So now I'm trying to investigate where is the vacuum leak coming from. Well, I have a pretty good feeling it's coming from this thing right here. So what is this thing? I am pretty sure it's some sort of throttle body spacer, which are completely useless, but you can see right there, it's sort of pinched, and it also has cracks all the way around it. And this is directly behind the throttle body. So that thing is completely useless. So what I ended up doing was pulling off the throttle body. And it looks like the gasket's in really good shape. And I've already cleaned out my throttle body because it had some oil residue and stuff in there. Like I said, this car's got about 80K on it. So, unfortunately, whoever put that silly thing in there put these really cheap-ass bolts in there that are extremely long. So whenever I take the throttle body spacer out, they go all the way through the throttle body and are contacting the back side of the intake. So I actually went and got me some of these really high quality cap head screws with some locking washers. So I'm going to put that in there, and hopefully that will solve my vacuum leak and maybe help my richening problem. The other thing that I've discovered about this car is that I'm pretty sure it has some sort of tune in it. So I've done lots and lots of research on these LS cars, and there's this thing called a CAGS in the computer from the factory, which forces you to go from first to fourth. I have never, under any condition, had that light pop on, or the computer forced me to go from first to fourth. And come to find out, the only way you can have that turned off is by having your motor custom tuned. Well, it actually has a ram air intake, aftermarket ram air intake. So that's goes on the top of the air filter, and right here, if you can see, is a scoop that comes up right here. So I think somebody has had this tuned, which might be another reason why it's running really rich, because it drops down to like 10.5 whenever I'm accelerating. Anything above like 50% throttle, it drops down way below 11. So I'm going to put everything back together and drive it and see what's going on. One of the other things I wanted to show you guys real quick is, earlier in some of my other videos I talked about that I'm going to be putting an oil pressure gauge on my turbos because they're going to be rear mounted. In the meantime, while I'm trying to get my car, make sure it's 100% healthy, that there's no problems with it, that everything runs right, I really want to get a good feel for fuel pressure, because I'm going to be changing out the factory Walbro 255 with actually I think I've got it over here, with a Denso Kiyoshi-shan, let's see, where is it in this pile of parts? Oh, here it is. So I'm going to be swapping it out with a Denso Kiyoshi-shan something or other, Walbro style fuel pump. And it's from the Supra twin turbos, the like 90 something, early 90s Supra twin turbos. It's supposed to do like 800 horsepower at 14 volts. So it should be able to flow more than enough fuel for this just in the factory fuel system. So I'm going to put the gauges on, drive it around, make sure everything's good. I already found a vacuum leak. And then I'm going to put the fuel pump in it, drive it around, make sure everything is good. But to help me make sure the fuel pressure stays the same and everything is working, that my fuel regulator is doing what it's supposed to do, I actually took the oil pressure gauge and installed it on my fuel pressure rail. So I had to adapt, but it's not permanent, it's just temporary, and it works like a champ. So also, here's the throttle body, installed everything back, got my ram air thingy in there, got my throttle body back in there. Here's my cap head screws that are much higher quality than the crap that was in there. So you just have to take this off, your mass airflow sensor off, and those 4 bolts, the whole throttle body comes out. There's a wire back there for the drive-by wire, the electronic pedal. So I'll start it up and you guys can, oh, I gotta reconnect the battery. Be back in a second. All right, so battery's reconnected, started the car. And every time you disconnect the battery on your gauges, they're gonna reset back to this blue color. So fuel air, oil pressure, AKA fuel pressure, 60 pounds, 58 to 60 pounds is normal on these C6 Corvettes. And then I've got my vacuum gauge. Oh, look at there. So before, the reason I thought I had a vacuum leak is because I was just at like 1 or 2. And on my supercharged Dodge truck over there, I've got a boost gauge on it. And it runs all the way down here around 20. And I've just heard 20 is about average for any vehicle, really. And so I was hovering up here and I knew something wasn't right. So it looks like removing that silly throttle body spacer worked. So, and also my oil pressure gauge is working great as a fuel pressure gauge. It's just a pressure sensing unit, that's it. You could put it on water, oil, fuel, whatever. Now the seals inside there, I don't know, but oil is petroleum based just like gasoline is. So if the seals rot from having gasoline pressure on it, it's gonna rot if it has oil pressure on it too. Now, I don't know about brake pressures, because brake pressure sending units, that has to have a completely different setup. So I probably wouldn't use it on any kind of brake pressure system. But oil and gas are pretty much interchangeable. So that won't stay there forever. It'll just be temporary until I get everything plumbed in for my turbo system and I get past the dyno day and I can make sure that my oil pressure, my fuel pressure and everything is exactly where I want it to be.